Hello, welcome to Texas Lone Wolf page on YouTube, part 3 of Two Wings to the Same Bird. Alright, now, before I get into this topic, we are going to cover some controversial stuff. Alright, I did part 2, which, by the way, struck a nerve. It was a brief video. So, I did a part 3. It got some views on it. Alright. And of course, I got some comments on some other videos I produced last month and so forth. It was most recent last month. So, part 3 is done on November the 2nd. Part 3 of the Two Wings Belong to the Same Bird video on YouTube is going to be done. Now, I'm fixing to cover in some more depth topic to really show you that two wings of the same bird, which represents the American bald eagle, which is the official bird of the United States, he said already in bed with the Democratic Party, Republican Party, plus the military-industrial complex, which starts wars, conflicts overseas in the name of profit and power to cause massive chaos, suffering to innocent people around the world. The hegemony, you know what I'm saying, the hegemony has been created through violence and conflicts. Major countries around the world uses our money to exchange value from one person to the other, keep the dollar alive in the United States. They buy oil in dollars. It's called a petrodollar for a reason. The United States did not care about the weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. The point of the matter is, the former leader Hussein went and publicly announced that he wanted to take the oil off the U.S. dollar, and the United States acted militarily. All on this lies. The war that was created in Iraq was based on lies. And of course, everybody heard about Fallujah and the pockets of resistance and what have you. But yeah, I'm going to say this one time. The United States government is going to answer to the Almighty for the crimes that she has partaken. Okay? It's not the American citizens' fault for having a rogue government that does not represent the interest of the citizens. It's not our fault. We have to sit here and pick the lesser of two evils. And I don't know how many YouTube listeners, caught on to 1999 and year 2000 and so forth. Way back in time, the public had a confidence in the paper balloting system. the paper ballot itself helped fairly win the presidential election. I think in the 1960s, where John F. Kennedy won the election by one vote. Everybody was scripting and betting that the Republican guy was going to come get it. But on the other hand, the Republican guy was in on the ordeal. All right, he was in on the ordeal. He was in on it. Nixon was in on it. Everybody had wanted a piece of that pie. It was the most unpopular conflict in the 20th century. Millions of servicemen lied on their birth certificates to get drafted in the military just to go overseas to fight in a proxy war against defeating communism. This is scary, folks. Very scary indeed. Very, very scary. Okay, and recently we had attack in the Middle East. They're talking about sending our troops over there to put them on the ground and fight that proxy war. For what? There's oil over there, everybody. Can't you see this? There's natural resources. And let me tell you all this. There's oil, the main resources. When there's minerals and resources, the bankers are going to use innocent lives to go fight wars over resources for a profit, to use the military as a tool to control the said resources. If you can actually take a look at this, you know, you ever heard of Eden, the motherland of Eden? She also goes by other name that we know. It's called Africa. And many people don't realize this. How do you divide people in a nation to make them quarrel amongst each other? How do you do that? How do you take down the greatest nation on the planet? The United States was built with wars and conflicts. Many people should understand that the original inhabitants of the country that we call United States were the Indians. But they also have historical evidence that proved the Vikings landed before Columbus landed. Which, by the way, it's never been talked about because history has been edited to the point there is no truth left in it to share with the fresh kids in school. And public schools used to be a place where you get a great education at taxpayers' expense. Now it became a place of public indoctrination. Kids don't even know how to balance a checkbook, invest money, Learn how to cook dishes. Cooking is part of survival. All right. There is nothing sexist about cooking for yourself. It's part of survival. And most people work in food are looked down upon, mocked, made fun of, ridiculed. But hey, they learn a skill while getting paid for it and being educated and getting paid for it. They learn from the employer how to make delicious dishes. Did you know that? So yeah, there's people flipping burgers, flipping pizzas left and right just to make ends meet. But there's some people working mom and pop cafes or restaurants, making some homemade, diner-made peach cobblers, mashed potatoes with margarine and all that junk. Well, I mean, don't get me wrong, it tastes good and all, but eating margarine is almost like eating paint or plastic in your food. So why not spend a few more dollars at the HEB or a local grocery store? You can get the real butter. And if you're on a low salt diet, get that butter with no salt. I mean, at least you're going to get the flavor of the food out without harming yourself. And most of the time, there's men out there that cook. It's part of survival. Cooking in your own house is part of survival. In the fast food industry, rakes in billions and billions of dollars in profits, revenue, and making everyone sick, blowing the kidneys out with excessive sodium and MSG added to the food to bring out the flavor. Just name it. The body wears out as you age. Okay, the body will get old and wear out fast. And if you're taking drugs from big pharma, it's going to blow your organs out. It is what it is. Doctors ain't going to admit to this. They're being paid kickback money to, it's called hush money. They're being paid hush money to not talk about the problems. Their goal is to make a profit or make big pharma profit off your symptoms instead of cure the problem. No, take into consideration, when a problem is cured, the healthcare business loses a customer. It's basically the name of the game. I mean, to me, doctors are pushers of big pharma drugs, just like a pusher on a street pushing crack, cocaine and heroin and all that on a street for a peddler to get new customers hooked on it. And they ruin themselves. It ruins their looks. I mean, they hit the wall hard. Even men and women do hit the wall hard. It messes their looks up. They look horrible. And some people get cleaned up, and some people have a harder time finding love because of their past. But some people say, well, the past don't matter. But yeah, it does to some people. But yeah, everybody deserves a second chance. But the bottom line is, the government's public officers are involved in this drug laundering scheme as well. Notoriously known that CIA goes across dressed up as like a U.S. citizen, pay hush money to the cartels. Cartels find a way to sneak drugs back over. And guess what? The drugs get into the hands of a U.S. citizen, then the judge throws the book at the U.S. citizen. The cop or the detention center confiscate the drugs, resell it back to the cartel, and keep this racket going. This is what's called prison incorporated. And there's such thing as prison labor. And there's such thing as prisoners suing the correctional institution for the food they're being fed. Hello, if you want to break that vicious chain cycle, look at the friggin' Matrix. Pay attention to the Matrix. The whole Matrix rigged for everybody to lose and the criminal to win. And we're not talking about criminals who wear jumpsuits in prisons. We're talking about criminals who wear suit and ties and trade on the stock market, do business dealings with the bankers and the banks. It's a criminal enterprise. They manipulate and people wonder why the prices of everything going up. The companies are in bed with the banks. They manipulate the prices, jack everything up. And also the very parties that cause all the problem, guess what? They say they're going to fix it and put a band-aid on a wide open gash, and the wound gets more and more infected with taxation, with more inflation, more rise in prices. Then guess what? Then the government tries to fix the problem by implementing SNAP's food program to help people buy groceries. Really? While the companies jack up the prices of the food and goods and services, the government subsidizes the prices. So the taxpayers pay 2 times, 3 times the price for the food which before the conflicts happened. As I speak, this is all a rigged matrix. The politicians are in on this. The corporate CEOs are in on this. The banks are involved in on this. Wall Street's involved in on this. The traders are partaking of this. They're in on this. The only one that suffers are the consumers. Now we're getting to some real hard-hitting red pill truth here. And before you discredit or say that anything I said is all opinion, tell me you love me and I'll tell you that's your opinion. Well, that hurts, Well, when I speak the rawest truth, as I call a spade, I'm doing this to wake you up. Those that refuse to wake up will stay in slumber and sleep, while the criminal syndicate does dirty deeds behind the closed curtain, closed scenes. Whether you vote Republican or you vote Democrats, they're both 2 wings of the same bird. So what beckons us is we have one person who supports the Democrats that we need to get rid of the Republican Party. Then we got the majority of Republicans that, well, we need to get rid of the Democratic Party. So I got a better idea. Let's get rid of both parties, flush everything out, and start all over from scratch without foreign influence. Make the United States for the people and by the people. themselves institute a Republican form of government. But see, I pray to God that this film doesn't get flagged and taken off YouTube. But I am spitting out the red pill truth that everybody needs to hear and wake up. We're living in a time where people who are called conspiracy theorists are called crazy. Did you know that? And come to find out, the conspiracy theorists are correct about a lot of things. And oftentimes, what's now been said about the conspiracy theorists is now deemed correct. It's deemed correct right now. You have to get the raw red pill truth now than later. Now we have disillusionment of George Washington partisanship. And I'm fixing to go ahead and put that up. Alright, are you ready? Disillusionment of George Washington. He predicted what was going to happen. And George Washington said, end quote, remain free of political parties and partisanship. Although Americans' founders were at least professed in the aversion to factions, as they were frequently called, but none loathed them more fiercely and consistently, sincerely than he did. Though George Washington was first president of the United States, he loathed them fiercely and consistently, sincerely as he did. Washington saw it. Partisans were necessarily partial, meaning they favored the interests of parochial groups over the public good. Partisans could not be true patriots. He said that. Parties were, in his view, fatal to Republican government. They do this by sowing conflict. They divide the community, subvert public order by opposing the government's actions. They prevent its effective administration by favoring some over others. They open the door to political corruption and foreign influence. George Washington, way back in 1790s, saw that this was going to happen. In the event of course, America's first party system, which pitted the Federalists against the Republicans, emerged within. First few years after the Constitution was ratified and a new government was set up. In fact, the two sides were led by part of bitter enemies within President Washington's own cabinet. Secretary of Treasury Alexander Hamilton, Secretary of State Thomas Jefferson. By 1792, in a year which he reluctantly accepted second term as president, Washington had already begun to bemoan the internal dissension that were harrowing and tearing our vitals and making it difficult, if not impracticable, to manage the reins of government to keep the parts of it together, unless the partisan bickering abated. He warned Jefferson the republic must be inevitably be torn asunder. When the partisans did not abate the contrary, it grew continually worse over the course of the second term. Washington's outlook became even more bleak. He immortalized his worries for posterity of famous farewell's address of 1796, the great theme of which was the dangers of factionalism in its various guises, political parties, geographic divisions, and the ways which foreign entanglements exacerbated both. Did you know that George Washington was a Mason? He also knew that the Rothschilds wanted to take over the United States. That didn't happen until 1871, which the United States was declared martial law was declared, which martial law is still in existence. Everybody thinks that we still got free government, but we don't. Okay? And which way the foreign entanglement, the Federal often read as warning about potential danger that Washington feared the country might someday face. It was just much of a lament about the ills that he was sure already beset it. Although Washington lived on only 3 years beyond his exit from President State of American politics during his short retirement confirmed his darker fears. Partisanship reached a fever pitch during the early years of Adams' administration. In the midst of undeclared quasi-war with France, leading Washington warned that if party feuds has arisen such heights as to become portentous of the most serious consequences, that they would appear unlikely to end any important short of confusion and anarchy. Washington came to believe that no longer individuals and virtues, but rather parties and their ideology that determined the outcome of the elections. He insisted to one correspondent that the Republicans were to set up a broomstick and call it a true son of liberty, a Democrat, or any other epithet that it would suit their purpose. Wow. It will command their votes in total. By this point, Washington was convinced not only Congress, but the American people had become thoroughly and irretrievably partisan. He's always insisted his days as the head of Continental Army that Republican government could not survive under such conditions. This is his farewell in 1790, I think 996. In Washington's own views, his political career represented something like the reverse of his military career in politics. He won most of his battles, the election politics, the dispute, and the broader war. Just a week before his death in December 1799, he wrote to James McHenry, former Secretary of War, "I have something past view the political concern of the United States with an anxious and painful eye. They appear to me moving by hasty strides to some awful crisis. But in what will they result? Being who sees foresees, direct all things, alone can tell." George Washington was a Federalist, and the Republican Party was born with James Madison administration. Then the Democratic Party was born. that party has went silent for some time. The Federalist Party went silent. And notoriously, one of the Democratic women, I forgot what her name is, and famously says this is a Democratic problem or a Republican problem. It's actually an American problem. And just to be frankly, to let you know that all wars started will always end in serious casualties. Alright? It will always end in serious casualties. I'm fixing to type up another feature web page, and I'm going to put the links into the description and after I post it onto the YouTube website. Okay? So yeah, the problems we have is they're both on the same page. It is what it is. Democrats and Republicans are two of the same bird. They're both are the same bird. They both represent seizing power from the people they're supposed to represent. They are for themselves, not for the people that voted for them in office. They're supposed to be our voice. They're not. They are not our voice. They are their own voice. Whether you believe this or not, it is what it is. And remember, the big pharma's in bed with these major corporations. So we're going to go ahead and cover the topic about big pharma. Are you ready? Look at this. Creating disease, big pharma and disease mongering. They're in bed with the politicians, the Republicans and Democrats. They're in bed with them. Well, you need to go to the doctor. Well, guess what? The doctors are getting hush money from big pharma. The big pharma are marking up their drugs 20, 30, 40, 75% markup, with the insurance paying a tab. And guess who pays the premiums? The workers, or the social with a disability or elderly recipients who gets benefits. They pay the premiums, and then guess what? The Medicare pays, or Medicare companies pay these exorbitant prices by collecting the premium payment from the beneficiaries out of the benefit. Look at this. It's all a money-making scheme. We're fixing to dig into this. The big pharma want to get you sicker, so they keep on treating the symptoms to make a profit off the symptoms. If they cured you, they would have lost business. A cured customer is a business loss in the eyes of the big pharma. Did you know that? But there's a powerful industry in our societies working overtime to invent illnesses, convincing us we're suffering from them. But you mention the word cure, they will flip out and go crazy. Disease mongering is termed by health science writer Lynn Payer in her 1992 book, Disease Mongers, How Doctors, Drug Companies, and Insurers Are Making You Feel Sick. Payer defines disease mongering as trying to convince essentially well people that they're sick, slightly sick, very ill. The strategy has been called corporate construction of disease. And also, these big pharma drugs blow out the organs of every individual. Then put people on the transplant list. And guess what? The morgues or place where the dead bodies are embalmed, they mark up the price of the casket. They mark up the price of their service. They even charge $75 to give a hair, wash your hair. Have you ever heard of that? $75 to wash your hair. So you go and get a hairdo at a barber shop or a salon shop. It costs you, like, let's just say 12 to 25 bucks. But they won't charge $75 to wash your hair when you're deceased. Isn't this sick? Then they want to bill you by the hour putting clothes on your deceased naked body, covering you up and making you look good as if you were alive. This is really part of the racket. It's part of the racket wheel. Controlled by the two wings of the same bird. Everything's involved. The government's involved in all of this. They're involved in all of this. This is a matrix that I've been talking about. The matrix itself is twisted, crooked, not honest. Okay, the strategy is so-called corporate construction of disease by Ray Monahan, Iona Health, or Heath, David Henry in the British Medicine Journal. The British Medicine Journal, there's a lot of money to be made from telling healthy people they're sick. Pharmaceutical companies are active involved in sponsoring definition of disease, promoting them prescribers and consumers. They give the prescribers hush money under the table behind people's backs. The prescribers live really healthy lives. They get paid great by the healthcare industry, healthcare provider. They get nice to a healthy check by marking up the prices of office visits. Back then, back in the old days, office visits were not as high price. You go see a doctor in an office visit, it's going to run you into hundreds or almost thousands of dollars. Did you know that? And oh, by the way, part 1, part 2. I'm going to input those links of them past videos into this description to give you a chance to watch each and every one of these. And I'm just touching up on what I talked about. So, now, we're going to go ahead and take a good look at this. The disease mongering got rolling in 1879, which invention of Listerine, which originally considered a surgical antiseptic. It was named after a famous English surgeon, Joseph Lister, who performed first antiseptic oral surgical procedure soon. However, Listerine's inventor, Dr. Joseph Lawrence and George Lambert, were selling it as a concentrated form as a floor cleaner in the treatment for gonorrhea. In 1895, they began to market as a dinner for oral care. In 1914, became first over-the-counter mouthwash marketed in the United States. By 1920, the Lambert Pharmaceutical Company Listerine maker was confident they found a cure. All they needed was a disease, and they created the disease to keep the racket going, profits rolling in. Did you know they made one called halitosis? Before that time, it was an obscure medical term that no one heard of. Advertisers began to promote Listerine as a cure for this condition. They said it could be a blight anyone's chance of succeeding in romance, marriage, works. Soon everyone was suffering from halitosis. The trick was to inflate the common everyday condition to a level of pathology. If not attempted, would be a blight one's perspective for personal happiness and success. Guess what? The advertisers, the Listerine marketers, look, they made a cut off the profits of Listerine. Did you know they made a profit off of it? They made a cut off of this. This is what I call pervasive marketing tactic. If you don't use this, you're going to get sick. Okay, the Listerine marketers refined a marketing technique were pioneered by the patent medicine makers of the 19th century. Novelist Henry James was so vexed by these huskers, he called them, nostramongers. His brother, Harvard psychologist William James, considered the father of American psychology, was also exasperated by them saying the author of these advertisements should be treated as public enemies and have no mercy shown. This here was actually, Payer identifies several disease-mongering tactics among them. Take a normal function and imply there's something wrong with it and say how it should be treated. Describe suffering that isn't necessarily there. Hypochondriasis should come to mind. Saying you have something when there is no medical evidence of it showing up. Okay, define a proportion of a population possible suffering from disease. Define a condition of deficiency disease as a disease of hormonal imbalance. Recruiting the doctor to spin the message. Did the doctors make a cut? The health care office industry makes a cut. The medicine factories make a cut. The big pharma manufacturers make a cut. Advertisers make a cut. As one psychologist way back in the father of psychology said, they should be treated as enemies and no mercy given to them. And the government's involved in this. That's sad, isn't it? And using statistics selectively to exaggerate the benefits of the treatment. This is the way to push the medical procedure to give the big pharma in the healthcare industry a nice boost in revenue. Like I said, when a patient is cured, that's a business lost. Promoting the treatment risk-free. Of course, there's a cost attached to it. Nothing is free except the air you breathe. Remember that. Okay, I'd say that. Take a common symptom would mean anything and make it sound as if there was a sign of serious disease. Healthcare watchdogs are now blowing a whistle on major pharmaceutical companies who engage in these activities. It's about time they do this. Healthcare watchdogs are blowing a whistle on this. We have a major problem going on. The big pharmaceutical companies are engaging in risky behavior, giving the general public drugs that will blow their organs out, blow the liver out, costs this, costs that. They make a profit off the side effects. They're not saying the condition don't exist. Indeed, problematic for some people. It's hypochondriasis. That's problematic. And their incidence of relevance is widely exaggerated. Pursuit of corporate profits among these illnesses: erectile dysfunction, female sexual dysfunction, bipolar disorder, ADD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, restless leg syndrome, osteoporosis, social shyness, social anxiety, social phobia, irritable bowel syndrome, and bowing. Now, to me, there is nothing wrong with social shyness or social anxiety disorder. There's nothing wrong with it. Actually, the people are actually fairly healthy when they are enjoying their alone time. They're trying to make money off of something that's not there. You follow me? And I'm going to put this here. Why should we be concerned about disease mongering? Okay, there's a huge psychological burden in thinking ourselves diseased, which we're not. Beyond the psychological costs, there are financial costs, both personal and social. Treating these illnesses with pharmaceuticals is not cheap. See, I told you there's a cost attached to this. Moreover, no tax when the healthcare system can sustain the cost of drug treatment for all the risk, which drug company would like to treat the population. Reversing disease mongering won't be easy, but there's a near limitless amount of money to be made from marketing pharmaceutical remedies for disease that exist mainly in the imagination. There's a powerful economic, political, professional interest who desperately want this process to continue. That's the big pharma. They're going to deny that the drugs cause all the problems, like blowing your kidneys out, going and getting you a kidney transplant. Then you got to get on an anti-rejection drug for kidneys. Listen to me, folks. This is un-American. And this is a form of which to keep the pharmaceutical companies operating, making profit off of stuff and not there. ADHD was cured by butt whipping back in the 1960s and 50s. A butt whipping cured all that. Now here in this current millennia, we take a child who throws a temper tantrum to a doctor, put them on medicine, they become zombie-like individuals. When they graduate, you take them off the drug, they start losing all that weight, and they become former shell of themselves. The top drug that they prescribe children is Ritalin. It's made by the big pharma. It's got some very bad, nasty side effects. Obesity is one of them. So right here talks about Ford. By the way, Ford may be immuning themselves psychologically against messages from big pharma that invades our life on every hand. We have to learn to stop being suckers. Oh, they want everybody to become suckers. How long health believe our fear of suffering from death makes us disease mongering? Today, because of comfort of religion, we're no longer real for many people. Death seems more final, resulting in panic of rage rushing to anything over better health, increased longevity. Actually, the drugs reduces your lifespan of every human being that's on it. Did you know that? Everyone's lifespan is reduced when they're on prescription drugs. Paxil or Paroxetine is for mood. You get off of that drug, you become meaner and angrier than a junkyard dog. And check this out. Maybe it's the best way to resist disease mongering and not beat our heads against the fortunes of big pharma, but develop a psychological, spiritual maturity which makes us resist the effort, instill fear and dread in our lives. It's been said that one of the main ways that humans differ from other creatures in our desire to take a pill. The pharmaceutical companies know that. So, it's been said that one of the main ways we humans differ from other creatures in our desire to take a pill. Pharmaceutical companies know that. Yet our health is determined mainly not by the pills we choose to swallow, but how we choose to live our lives. By the way we eat, exercise, work, play, love, relate to other things, realizing that we can outsmart the effort of the disease mongers and to pathologize every moment of our existence. Written by Larry Dossey, M.D. He knew about this. And every sickness is being sold and marketed. So yes, this video is part of, see, and take note, the U.S. government is in bed with a big pharma. I'm not going to lie to you, they are in bed with big pharma. Do y'all remember in 2009 when PPACH was passed through the Senate and House with a Democratic control under Barack Obama? I remember that. And one of the famous Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, famously said, we're going to have to pass a law and see what's in it. But as soon as the details leaked out, death panels or people that don't even know you get to decide how long you get to live and restrict treatment to you as an elderly which, by the way, is very scary. So anyways, here's the last video called the Two Wings of the Same Bird Part 3. But I'm fixing to include 2 parts of the other YouTube videos into the description below, so you can check them out. You do not want to miss them, okay? Thank you for taking the time to listen, and take care of yourself, take care of others. Peace.